entering the fantasy football season. Here's a few wide receivers that I think are going to be busts this season. And guys, to be honest, I wouldn't look to draft unless they fall in your drafts coming up. The next first guy is Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. Lockett last season, he was non-existent for most of the fantasy football season, even though he ended up with decent numbers still. 73 catches, 1,175 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. But early in the year, he wasn't doing much. And now to lose Russell Wilson after they traded him to the Denver Broncos here, the quarterback's either going to be Geno Smith or Drew Lockett, looks like. And I have no confidence that those guys could stretch the field and get the ball to Lockett early and often. DK Metcalf, I think he's going to be fine. But Tyler Lockett, I don't know. He's going to be an inconsistent wide receiver this season. And right now, he's going anywhere from 8th to the 10th round in fantasy leagues. So right now, with a problem at quarterback here, I don't think he's going to have a great year. In the last couple seasons, it's only been a few big games where Lockett got a lot of his points and a lot of his receiving yards. We saw a few seasons ago, he had a 63-point fantasy day where he went over 200 yards and then he disappeared for a few weeks. So right now, with a good quarterback last season and Russell Wilson, and the last few seasons, for a matter of fact, where he disappeared a lot, and now with inconsistent and pretty much quarterbacks that aren't going to get the job done in Geno Smith and Drew Lock, he's definitely a guy with a void and a guy I'm not going to have a high stock on. It's a bench piece, yeah, he's fine, Lockett, but a week in and week out flex option or a third wide receiver, he's definitely a receiver I could see being a bust. And a guy with the track record over the last few seasons, I don't have confidence in being that good this season. The next guy is Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints. So many people have been down this road now over the last couple years here with Thomas after having that monster year, being one of the best players in all of fantasy and the best receiver 2-3 years ago. But right now, everyone, they're hyped up for Michael Thomas once again. He's going anywhere from 5th to the 7th round. But I think he's going to be a bust and a guy I said to avoid in my avoid video. So right now I got a lot of videos up on the channel. If you haven't watched them, go up there and watch them. I pretty much cover everything that you would need to know entering your fantasy leagues and the drafts in the next couple weeks. So Michael Thomas, the last 2 seasons, he's pretty much hung out and done nothing. He got his big contract and he's been injured supposedly, but I don't buy those injuries being that serious. So right now, coming into the year, he's 100% and ready to go. Jameis Winston, he's going to be the quarterback this season. He's banged up a little, but coming off season-ending surgery last year with the ACL, but he's going to be the number 1 guy. But I can't count on Michael Thomas. Year after year, he's been disappointing and a guy who's just not into it anymore. I think he'll play a few games this season and then once again play off like he has an injury or something. And he's just a guy not motivated, in my opinion, and a player that don't want to play. So right now, yeah, he could have a breakout year and surprise, but with his track record, like I mentioned, he's a guy I'm going to avoid and a guy that's going to be a bust once again this season for the 3rd year in a row is Michael Thomas. Yeah, he put up great numbers, but remember, he wanted that contract. And remember, Drew Brees was his quarterback, who's obviously going to be a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. So this season, I'm going to avoid him, and I'm going to say once again, he's going to be a bust. The next guy is Christian Kirk of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Kirk, he got the monster contract last season, and he's another guy that's going to take a hit. I know he might get force-fed with targets early in the year with Jacksonville, but I think he fit that Arizona offense perfect as a deep ball threat. But hey, who could blame Christian Kirk? He went for the money, but this year I don't think he puts up the numbers, even though Trevor Lawrence in his 2nd year, I think he could break out possibly. On the season last year for Kirk, 77 catches, 982 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. But even last season, there were games where he disappeared and he would have a 20-point fantasy day and then the next week only get 4 or 5 fantasy points. So he's going to be inconsistent in Jacksonville. He's going right now anywhere from the 8th to the 9th round. And there's guys in those rounds I'd rather have than him. A Hunter Renfrow I've been seeing going a lot in that round over there. I've seen Devonta Smith, who I think could have a good season in his 2nd year in the NFL going around there. And even Adam Thielen's in that ballpark as well as a guy I definitely would want over Christian Kirk. So I don't like his ADP. I don't like the fit over there in Jacksonville. I felt like he fit better with Arizona. And Jacksonville, they don't really have many playmakers. So a lot of defenses, they're going to roll coverage to Kirk's way. And I don't think he gets the job this season. So right now, Christian Kirk's definitely a wide receiver I think is going to be a bust this season. And a guy I don't want to deal with. And I've gave you a few examples of other players I'd rather have in that ADP range than a Christian Kirk. The next bust is Kenny Golladay of the New York Giants. So the Giants here for many seasons now Receivers can't stay healthy. Saquon Barkley can't stay healthy. And offensive line has been an issue. And Daniel Jones hasn't been that good either. So Golladay, he's an injury-prone wide receiver throughout his career, going back to his Lion days. And the Giants, they locked him up to a decent deal last offseason. So Golladay last year missed a lot of games, 37 catches, 521 receiving yards. And right now, he's going towards the back end of fantasy drafts. But even at that, he's a wide receiver I can't count on. Daniel Jones, with this new regime, he could be even worse, believe it or not, this season. And Golladay, he's just a walking injury. So right now, with his injury concerns, the offense is changing, and Daniel Jones not reliable to get the ball to his receivers week in and week out. Right now, Kenny Golladay is another wide receiver that I would avoid, and another bust. And to be honest, that whole Giant offense, you just can't count on. I know Kadarius Toney could have a big breakout year, no doubt about it, but he's another guy in his rookie season last year where he got hurt early and often. And yeah, he had big ball games, but nothing materialized. So right now, Kenny Golladay, I think, will be a bust once again this season. And the fifth and final wide receiver, I think, is going to be a bust, is Rashad Bateman of the Baltimore Ravens. I know he's the number one dog over there on the wide receiver depth chart, is Bateman now, with Hollywood Brown traded to the Arizona Cardinals in the offseason. But Bateman, he was never a number one, obviously. Last season, he was up and down as well, and injured as well part of the year. 46 catches, 515 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And right now, he's going over some decent receivers where I'd rather have those receivers than a Bateman. I'd rather have a Thielen than him. Mike Williams, he's in that range as well. I'd rather have Mike Williams than a Rashad Bateman. Even a Jalen Waddle, he's falling down into that range. DK Metcalf, he's getting drafted fifth, sixth round. I'd rather have him over Bateman. And Bateman, the guy, a lot of hype coming into the year. I know he's a number one, but we know Lamar Jackson's had his throwing issues over the last few seasons. Bateman, yeah, he showed some flash last year, but his ADP I don't like is at all going fifth, sixth round in most fantasy leagues, where I could get better guys, like I mentioned, than him in the same ballpark area. So right now, I don't think he's going to have a big year, probably 700-800 yards. But with his ADP and being the number one wide receiver, that's not saying much. That's a few wide receivers that are going to be busts here entering fantasy drafts in the season within the next few weeks.